Hey guys, and welcome back to the Yes Means Yes podcast. On this week's episode, we have special guest Tiffany Works on to talk about RAD, which I'm going to go ahead and let her explain and everything, but this is basically a women's self-defense class. My name is Faith Nomshek. I'm the victim advocate and outreach coordinator with rape counselors. I'm going to let Amanda and Tiffany introduce themselves.
Hey guys, I'm Amanda Carpenter and I'm also with the RCEA and I'm the victim advocate and outreach specialist.
Hello everyone, my name is Tiffany Works and I work for Gadsden Regional Medical Center as the outreach coordinator, and I am also a reserve deputy and chaplain with the Etowah County Sheriff's Office.
So Tiffany, to start us off, would you explain what RAD is and what is your role in the program?
Thank you for asking, Faith. Yes, RAD is Rape Aggression Defense Systems, and it is basically a basic self-defense class for women only. And I just want to quote Susan B. Anthony as saying, "Women must not depend on the protection of man, but must be taught to defend herself." And she said that in 1871. And we teach women basic self-defense moves and terms and different things to protect themselves. It's not necessarily a prevention, but it is definitely protection. And we just want women to be aware of their surroundings, and we teach all kinds of stuff. Women get to fight, they learn moves, all kinds of different stuff, and it's a lot of fun for women.
Awesome. So you've mentioned women. Is this class particularly for women? Are there like male or non-gender conforming options if others were seeking them?
Yes, there are different options. There are options for males and other non-gender conforming as well. So, however, I am only certified in the basic self-defense for women. It's a very, the rape aggression defense system is not for the weak at heart or the contentious objector. Our system is specifically designed for women who are willing to consider as a viable option defense in situations where their life is in jeopardy.
Awesome. So obviously, like it's kind of in the name, the first word is rape. What is the discussion regarding sexual assault like in your classes?
What we talk about in class is the 4 risks of personal safety. And we talk about risk awareness, risk reduction, risk recognition, and risk avoidance, which is only 90% of self-defense education. The other 10% is what you do when you're in a compromising situation. And we talk about different types of sexual aggression, from sexual harassment to sexual assault to rape, and the different types of rape. However, with that being said, I would just like to present to the group that isn't it odd that when we talk about rape, we say, oh, there's this type of rape and that type of rape. But when we talk about murder, I mean, do we call it something different? For example, I mean, a man and a woman go out for the evening, they have dinner, see a movie, then they go back to his place for a drink. He rapes her. Why is this called date rape? Scenario 2, a man and a woman go out for the evening, they have dinner, see a movie, and then they go back to his place for a drink. He kills her. Why isn't this called date rape? I mean, date murder. You know, so we put things really into perspective of, you know, what rape is, and our terminology is simple. If a rape has occurred, regardless of the circumstances of encounter or the aggression or aggressor's intention, it's rape. Rape is rape, no matter how you look at it.
That's a really, okay, so I've never even heard or thought of that before. That's so interesting because it's so true. And I know that I have heard some discussion of people just like not wanting to call it this rape or that rape and just calling it rape, because I think that like subconsciously we want to almost rank it. Like, oh, well,
right.
Stranger rape is more severe or more of a rape than date rape. Like that's, you know, and for anyone who was just listening, I did air quotes because obviously that's not true. But I do think as society, we do try to rank them.
Absolutely.
Right. Murder's murder.
Right, exactly. And I think, that's one reason that we keep, and I'm quoting a lot out of the book, that I must refer to as an instructor. And, I think that's one of the reasons that we keep our terminology so simple is because we don't want to put value or levels of severity on rape. I mean, it is what it is. Rape is rape, murder is murder.
Right.
And we need to call it as such, and that's the way that we treat it. And as I said earlier, 90% of protecting yourself is education, and the other 10% is what you do when you're found in um, a situation.
Mhm, mhm. That's yeah. I really like that now. Amanda, write that
Yes,
down.
that tends to be, everybody kind of gets this look on their face like, I've never really thought about it that way. And, when you do present it like that, it really does make you go, and say, yeah, it makes sense.
Well, I think it would help in validating everyone's experience because I do feel
Absolutely.
that you would look at and be like, well, it wasn't as bad as their certain type of rape or comparison. And so, yeah, no one is like, well, that murder was far more gruesome than this murder. So that murder must matter more,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It just gives it definitely a different perspective.
So in the classes, you said you did talk obviously about sexual assault and rape and stuff. What about consent?
We teach that no means no. In fact, that's one of the first things that we learn is when we get to the physical learning part of the class of learning the actual techniques and the moves, the actual self-defense part of the RAD class, we teach people to yell, not scream, but to yell. And the word we encourage is no,
Mm-hmm.
to yell the word no. And the reason that we do that, again, back to our terminology and keeping it simple and universal, no. It doesn't matter what language, the perpetrator speaks, everyone understands no. Now, obviously we do encourage people to say anything. That's part of it is, when you're punching or kicking or trying to get out of a chokehold or some kind of hold of some type. The reason that we do teach people to yell is so that they're breathing and that they remain as calm as possible. So, but no is the word that we teach people to say. So, when it comes to consent, if you say no, that is definitely not consent. So we do discuss consent in those terms.
Okay. So what would you say would be some benefits for someone seeking to take a RAD class?
You know, Going back to the Susan B. Anthony quote, there's nothing more powerful than self-empowerment and just knowing what you're capable of and knowing how to handle yourself in a rape situation, an abduction situation. Knowing what to do when you're encountered in a situation is so empowering. And part of the class is how you carry yourself and present yourself in public and being alert and vigilant of your surroundings. And so self-empowerment certainly has an impact on the way that we carry ourselves. If we're walking with our shoulders slumped or looking down and we don't look very confident, then we're likely to look like we're weaker than someone else. And so we want to walk like we're strong. And so we definitely think that that is a benefit of empowering women to know that they're capable of protecting themselves and they don't have to have someone with them to do that. Now, with rape, aggression, defense systems, there is no guarantee of survival at all. And I want to make that clear. It is just to give some viable options, a toolbox, if you will. We don't guarantee that anybody won't be raped or abducted or harmed in any way. In fact, we do teach that if you're going to fight willing to do whatever you need to do to get out of the situation. Take DNA with you, whatever it is that you have to do to get out of the situation.
So this is kind of coming off of that a little bit because I really just kind of thought of this as you were talking. Have you ever had someone who had been like sexually assaulted or raped in the past then go on to go in one of your classes as a form of empowerment or like kind of taking that control back?
Yes, I have had, especially some younger teenage young ladies that have come through that have experienced some type of sexual assault in any shape, form, or fashion, and older women as well. And we do talk about that at the beginning of class and talk, we're sensitive to that. We want them to know that we are aware and of that, and we want them to also know that some of this may cause some memories or feelings, emotions, or thoughts to resurface, and we want to be able to address that. The class is taught by men and women. The men who teach the class have to be certified to come into the class. So if a man that is not certified comes into the class, they have to leave. And in fact, we have something called a white letter as well that we give to all the ladies, and we have them sign and agree to it, to where they will not talk about or share even with their husbands or closest male friends any of the techniques that we use. Because we don't necessarily teach to distrust everyone, but we want you to be vigilant of everybody at all times. And so we don't want to give away any of our tricks to anybody, to just anybody. So we definitely encourage people not to talk about any of those things with their husbands. But back to what your question was, could you repeat it? Remind me of where I was supposed to be going with that.
Yeah, I think you answered it. It was really just, a curiosity if you had seen victims come in as a kind of like empowerment and regaining power and control thing.
Yes, and absolutely. And we have had women, so me getting off on subject a little bit, going down a rabbit hole there with that men and women teach, is that we encourage the women to say, we say, hey, if you're uncomfortable with a man touching you, let us know and we'll come over, because we practice grabs and chokes and different things like that. So if they're uncomfortable with a man touching them, then one of us ladies will go over and we'll do it. And even then, as a female, doing these with other females, if they're uncomfortable with that, then we totally respect that. So yes, we take that into consideration. And it's actually, the women come in there and they're very nervous a lot of times, especially at the beginning, and knowing, this is a long class. It's many hours. It's like over a course of 4 to 6 weeks, from anywhere to 3 to 4 hours. And so these women in the very beginning are very nervous. And oftentimes those who have been victimized are very distrusting. And so we encourage them to talk to us, and over time they start to trust us and get to know us, and they loosen up a little bit. And especially knowing that they're going to fight at the end, they're very nervous about that and worried about how they're going to handle themselves, and they think it's about how strong they are or how big they are or how small they are, what they have, what they don't have, and it's really nothing about that. But it's really wonderful seeing these women become so empowered, especially those who have been victimized either through sexual assault or domestic violence, and to come out and feeling physically strong, mentally and emotionally strong. We can show little bitty women how to pick up a 300-pound man off the ground with no strength at all. So it's about how to use things against the perpetrator to your advantage.
Tiffany, what ages do you guys usually have in these classes? Because you say women, so what are your ages that y'all usually do?
We have had them as young as 12 or 13 years old. However, under the age of 18, we do require parental consent. There's all kinds of consents at the beginning of class, even if you're over the age of 18. But, especially if you're under the age of 18, we do require parental consent. And that's for any class. That's not just us, but for this program in general, it's required.
So we are talking about something that people could identify as a quote rape prevention strategy quote. I want to get your opinion on how this could be. I know a lot of people, we don't want to refer it to as like a rape prevention because the insinuation is that rape could be prevented. And that, of course, we wouldn't want to go into that victim blaming mindset. But could you explain maybe how your thought process in going through this? Do you think that these prevention methods such as RAD are harmful and that they suggest it could be prevented?
I do think that, many times women think, oh, I've gone through a self-defense class, it's not going to happen to me. Or, I know how to get out of this, or I know how to get out of that, it's not going to happen to me. So sometimes, I do believe, I would be being unrealistic if I didn't think that there was sometimes, often, or not often, but sometimes a false sense of security there, and we definitely don't want anyone thinking that. We don't want anyone thinking that, oh, this can't happen to me, and just because you've been through the class doesn't mean that it can't happen to you. But what we do say, on the flip side of that and the positive side of that is, back to that empowerment, and how when you have that sense of self-empowerment, that you have some tools, so to speak, in your toolbox, and different ways to fight back in certain situations, you are going to carry yourself a little bit different. And perpetrators or assailants will look at women who are looking down, or looking at their phone. And this is not to victim blame and say, oh, because you were looking at your phone or because you looked weak, you were raped. That's not saying that at all. But what we want women to know is that when you present yourself in a certain way, you don't look as easy to attack as someone who walks looking ahead, looking around at your surroundings, and being vigilant to what's going on around you. So we don't want to give that we say, victim blaming by saying, oh, well, you looked weak and that's why you were raped. That's not what we're insinuating at all. But we do want women to feel empowered and to carry themselves differently, but also with a realistic understanding that this is not a 100% guarantee.
Right. The mindset.
Sorry.
I was going to say, I think the mindset that we've kind of tried to develop is that, well, first of all, nothing causes rape except for rape. If rapists did not exist, rape would not exist. So that is the only one and only thing that causes rape.
Absolutely.
But there are personal safety measures that we do try to encourage, only because just like murderers, there are rapists out there. So there are methods in which you could take safety measures, because this world is full of evil things, and that's never going to change, I don't think. But
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think you're right, Faith. Changing the way that we word things and the way that we look at things is very important. And that goes back to that, the triangle that I was talking about, with the three things that have to be there in order for rape to occur: the victim, the perpetrator or the assailant, and the opportunity. The victim, assuming that would be one of us, is that's the only thing that we're in control of. I do feel like that there is, the opportunity, we can eliminate the opportunity a little bit as well by walking as though we're empowered, walking strong, looking strong, and being vigilant. So, we can throw the triangle off of balance. So, yeah, definitely, it's there. And just having that mindset is very important.
So today, whenever Faith was telling me we were going to do this podcast, I was just going to run this. So when I was Googling self-defense and sexual assault, this is what comes up. It says self-defense is a valuable and well-proven tool to prevent sexual assault. Self-defense training is about empowering women. It's about giving them the choice. Giving women the skills to defend themselves does not mean they are to blame when an assault occurs. So I think it's important to note that it does not prevent, but it can help protect you. So I was just wanting to kind of get your opinion kind of on that too, because that's the very first thing that comes up was self-defense is a valuable and well-proven tool to prevent sexual assault. But then underneath that, it said the other. So I was just wanting to kind of get your opinion about that.
Yes, and interestingly enough, Amanda, is the RAD system's instructional objective is, and I quote, by the founder, Lawrence Nadeau, to develop and enhance the options of self-defense so they may become viable considerations to the woman who is attacked. So again, back to that toolbox, there's so many things that it does not matter in what circumstance or situation that you're in, or how strong or how big or how little you are or how helpless you feel. Do what you got to do. Giving you some tools, absolutely, but it doesn't prevent it. It's just protection.
Just having those skills,
absolutely,
it's very important.
And
I
can't tell you how. I mean, I have fought so many times. My husband is an instructor also, and I get to beat him up all the time when I go into these. And we wear big red. They wear a big red pads, and we put on our pads, and we actually physically fight. And they try to detain us. I mean, they try to stop us, and we have to fight our way through them and exit the room, the door, run to get away, create distance. And I cannot tell you the adrenaline rush that I get every time I do it, and I cannot tell you, no matter how many times that I do it, how empowered I feel. And the more that I practice that, the more that I know my skills, the more that I feel confident and self-empowered to be able to utilize those skills and tools in the event that it really did happen.
And I can
sorry.
I was gonna say I can attest to that, the fact that we have been in almost a school building before, and at a drop of a noise, Tiffany's ready. She's ready.
I am. Head on a swivel, and I mean, people look at me like I'm funny all the time because I'm, they think I'm being paranoid or something. But when you're in law enforcement and work in mental health like I do, I mean, you just learn to pay attention to even the smallest things. And being aware of your situation is so important, so important. And this is one of the reasons why that I am like that, is because of this class. If I teach it, then I must live it. I must be an example for sure.
Well, I also think it's probably too the women that go through these classes, it's kind of like riding a bike. Like once you learn it, if you ever need to use it again, it kind of comes back to you. You might not have done it for years and years, but you kind of still remember it. So even if you just have an introduction to it, it's going to come back to you.
Yes, and that's muscle memory as well. And the interesting thing about RAD is that once you take it, once you've been through it, we sign a piece of paper saying that we certify you, that you've gone through the course, and you are welcome to come back to any class at any point during the class and be a participant or an attendant, however you choose to come back. So we encourage that. We encourage women to come back because, like I said, we give the white letter and we say, oh, you can't really practice with anybody. So that's why we encourage women to come back, is so that they can practice those skills and gain that muscle memory and be able to become even more empowered and more sure of themselves in situations.
That's awesome.
So I'm guessing possibly after listening to this, individuals will be, wanting to go and find one of these classes. How would they go about finding a class if they were interested in taking a RAD course?
So lots of individuals in sheriff's offices are becoming instructors and are instructors. And I think the first place to begin is by calling your sheriff's office and inquiring if they have classes. Also, any rape crisis centers that may have that information, that would be a good opportunity to reach out to them as well. And then also always your United Way 211 is also a good resource to reach out to as well, and to try to find or locate a class near to you. Now, the classes that I teach are free. We do not charge anything at all. I will say that many universities, the University of Tennessee being one, that in order for students to enroll in their class, they must take this class and they have to pay for it. And it's anywhere from $300 to $500 to take the class, and they cannot become a student until they take the class. So there are people who do teach this for free, and I think obviously I believe that it should be free. I would never charge for it. So definitely ask about cost and things of that nature. But sheriff's office is definitely where I would begin.
Okay, perfect. And any Auburn University students who may be listening, I know that a very similar like self-defense course is available through the university as like a course credit. So I would definitely recommend checking that out because, you're already paying for class credit. Might as well get some self-defense out of it. So Tiffany, we always like to ask our guests on the podcast to kind of answer a similar question. We want to know, what is your message to survivors?
I just want to say to the survivors out there, be strong. You're a warrior, and people do believe you, and people do support you, and you're not alone. And there are resources and ways. And thank you for speaking up and speaking out. We want to hear your story. We want to know what worked for you, and we want to know how we can teach other women to do what you did to get out of your situation, and how you are surviving and how you are pressing forward and using this situation for the best in your life. So thank you very much for speaking up and speaking out, and you're a warrior. Keep on keeping on.
Tiffany, thank you so much for joining us this week. This has been super informative, and we really appreciate your insight. So to anyone listening, thank y'all so much, and we will see you on our next podcast. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye.